My name is JC Luvasua. I work for WWF. I'm based in Madagascar, and I lead the sustainable blue economy work for WWF. And as mentioned by Doreen in the intro, this work has been commissioned by WWF through a consultancy company named Profundo, based in Netherlands. So this presentation has been done in a few occasions. We have the opportunity to give this presentation in Kenya during the OBF face-to-face meeting, in Tanzania during the small-scale fisheries summit. We organized a launch of this report in South Africa last year in October. And now we'd like to share this further with the CSOs. I think we also had the opportunity to share these key findings with the CSOs members of Soituna during the advocacy training, which was held in Madagascar. And today the idea is really like to enhance further the audience to be aware of the key findings of this study. And please also excuse me for my voice. I just got a flu, and I hope it will not interfere in this presentation. So this one is just taking forward what Doreen presented in terms of the proposed agenda. So I will not spend further time on this one. When we say SWIO for WWF, it's the Southwest Indian Ocean seascape, which is an area comprised of many 5 countries in the region. As you can see in the map in the right, from South Africa to Kenya, inclusive of Madagascar. And if you look at that map, the area where we have presence are the one in blue, and our field work is in the area where we have those orange dots. In terms of okay, excuse me, I'm a bit challenged by technology. My next slide was to present a bit the SWIO strategy, WWF SWIO strategy, where, yeah, I hope you can see it now. Our strategy as WWF for the region is articulated around 4 pillars. Sustainable fisheries, with the goal that you can see close to it, the so-called area-based conservation, the sustainable blue economy, and the coastal community-led conservation. And as you can see, right in the middle of the strategy lies the CSOs. For us, the idea is really to influence and to reach those goals through the capacitation of CSOs to work with us and advocate with us to achieve the proposed goal. So for the context, why are we talking about blue economy today? You might have heard from the African Union that when we say blue economy, it is suggested to generate a very large economic value, around 300 billion annually, and it is growing, expected to be 400 billion, and by 2030, and close to 600 billion by 2063. And as we speak about blue economy, we also see a risk by the fact that if we don't set the proper, I would say, framework right now, there's a risk that as a sustainability aspect and the blue justice objective, we may not be there. Hence, the need to look at the financial aspect through the banks and investor, and also through the companies they are investing. So what is then the solutions? I think many of us might have heard about the definition of sustainable blue economy from WWF. It's linked to 3 aspects. the blue economy, which provides social and economic benefits for the current and the future generation, but also the one that restore, protect, and maintain marine ecosystem, and is based on clean technology and renewable energy. So that's where we kind of now move to the main, I would say, aspect of today is to look at the finance. Now, there's also the so-called SBE finance principle, Sustainable Blue Economy Finance Principle. And this is the world first global guiding framework developed by WWF and other partners that you can see on the slide in 2018. And it is really like they're developed to promote the implementation of the SDG 14. And it's a set of 14 principles that you can see in the right. And later on, I will share the slides. You can look further and maybe to understand what is the finance principle for the link, which is there. So the reason why we are like referring to the finance principle is that we'll be talking about finance, of course, but also it will be one of the areas where we'd like to anchor our advocacy for the sustainable blue economy. So why the FIs or the finance institutions are important, as well as the finance regulators. For the first one, the financial institutions, they're the ones who can redirect flows to blue economy for the companies they're investing. And also by assessing or establishing a very strong ESG, E being for environmental, S for social, and G for governance. And for the financial regulator, they are the ones also who can help set up the overall environmental aspect and make sure that anything happening at country level is like made through a very specific framework. So in terms of methodology then, this study look at three main pillars. The first one is the financial flow. Basically, it was to map the financial flow to and investment in 67 major companies operating in different sectors. And we have selected three of them, fisheries and aquaculture, energy and resource, and the last one being marine shipping and infrastructure. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is on assessing the financial institution policy. And for that, we have selected 25 local and international financial institutions. And the last bit of this study was really to look at the existing regulatory environment and evaluate them if they are like providing sufficient provision to secure the sustainable blue economy financing and to stimulate that. Maybe just a note on the policy assessment. As you mentioned, we have assessed 25 institutions and they were selected based on three main criteria. The first one being the ones which has been part of the financial flow assessment, but also you try to kind of look at financial institutions in the region and also to look at the kind of scale of those financial institutions, being it like regional or national level. So what are then the main findings? So the first one is to look at the commercial bank or the credits. So the study went from January 2016 till August 2023. And according to the study, around 20 billions were invested in loans and underwriting in the selected companies. Just to note that when we say companies, it's the 67 companies. And the overall trend is like on those 20 billions, most of that went to energy and resources and shipping infrastructure. That's the graphics you can see in the left. And when you look at the countries who benefited from those credit and loans, you will see that 90% of it went to Mozambique and South Africa. So in summary, then, we see that from credit and loans, it's really like focusing on a lot on energy and resource. And in terms of countries, Mozambique and South Africa. When we look at, again, kind of like a closed loop on from where the credit flows to where, you see on the graphics in the left that the major credit flows to Mozambique and South Africa. That was from the previous slide. But in terms of countries of origin, you will see that most of it also comes from South Africa, but also the US, France, and China. And if we look at the creditors, and that is the graphic in the right, you will see that ABSA Group from South Africa, Crédit Agricole from France, and Deutsche Bank were the biggest creditors. The graphics in the right also provide the kind of distribution between the sectors, and you can see the energy sectors is a very, very big part of it. Now, moving to the investment. The overall investment, excuse me, provided the figure of 7 billion in terms of bonds and share to the selected company. And it followed the very same path in terms of like country benefiting from the investment, South Africa and Mozambique. And in terms of sector, 3/4 of the investment going to energy and resource, where we have oil and gas and mining, and barely 1/5 of it going to shipping, marine shipping and infrastructure. Again, when you look at the countries of origins and benefiting from the investment, it's most of it like flows from the US company to South Africa and Mozambique, but also there are others that you can just read from the graphics, naming the few like UK, Norway, Germany, and South Africa again. And when we look at the biggest investor in the region for the three sectors, you will see the government pension fund from South Africa, but also many US-based institutions like BlackRock, Vanguard, Fidelity Investment, and so on. Now, we are now moving to the second part of the study, which was really to look at the policy framework of the 25 selected companies. And the graphic that you see here is a kind of a consolidated aspect of the policy assessment. You can look at the very last graphics, the bar on the bottom, which says consolidated. So when we look at the 25 of the selected company, no leaders were really like noted. You can see that the leaders should have a kind of grade from 7.5 to 10. So we have though 4 front runner, like which have been receiving an evaluation between 5 and 7.5. We have 6 follower with an assessment between 2.5 and 5. And most of it, which is 15, are like really behind. When we look at the very detailed, we can see that in some cross-cutting thematics, we see very few leaders, those thematics being the human rights and biodiversity. And also in terms of like cross-sectoral thematics, there are more leaders, for instance, the supply chain and renewable energy. So that's the second pillar of the assessment. The next one, look at the regulatory environment for the SWIO countries. And this table provided the 3 criteria which has been assessed. The first one being the ESG integration into financial regulation. And as you can see, only South Africa has this, like in there. Well, when it comes to consideration of the financial taxonomy, we can see that there's no specific blue finance taxonomy, but we have green. And when it comes like to blue economic coverage within taxonomy and financial regulation, we are like almost absent. So to sum up with this specific pillar, one can say that sustainable blue economy is not adequately addressed by financial regulation in the region, and only South African has the green taxonomy. So in conclusion, the banks provide around 20 billion to companies which are very active in the blue economy sector, while the investor holds around 7 billion in terms of bonds and share. When we look at the policy, we can say that there's still a lot of effort to be made, and that means that the current financial institutions don't really take in consideration the risk related to blue economy or ocean-related matter. And when it comes to the regulatory framework, one can say that the sustainable blue economy is not yet adequately addressed by financial regulation and banking supervision in the SWIO. And of course, there's still room for improvement. What are then the main recommendations that the study provided? So for the financial institutions is really to adopt and sign for the Sustainable Blue Economy Finance Principle, to develop and disclose Sustainable Blue Economy or Ocean ESG position statement, but also to assess exposure to blue economy sectors and develop their sector policy. And the last one is to publicly support development of a national and regional sustainable finance taxonomy. For central bank and regulators is to develop a regional sustainable finance taxonomy to make the environmental, social governance requirement and reporting mandatory for banks and financial institutions, to assess the exposure of the finance system to risk linked to blue economy and the marine ecosystem, and to align national sustainable finance regulation with the relevant blue economy policies and plans. The last recommendation is for us as a civil society organization. It is to urge banks and banking association to develop regional and national sustainable finance taxonomy and really to take an active part in this process. The second one is really to ask for central bank to create a discussion platform between central banks, academia, and community group, and of course with CSOs. The last one is really to campaign for the stronger mandatory financial regulation on ESG requirement for banks and financial institutions. So as a WWF, what we are like proposing as a next step is really to partner with financial institutions and explore capacity gaps to move toward the proposed recommendation. There's also a plan to organize training for financial institutions based on the key findings, and notably the one on ESG. The next one is to explore the feasibility to develop an SBA taxonomy guidelines for the region. The idea will be then for each countries to adopt and develop their own taxonomy based on that guideline. And the last one is really to support the identification of SBA investment opportunities in the region. So that's all. And I'll stop here. As we will be sharing these slides, you can see further resources at the links here. Beyond this kind of like consolidated reports, we also have countries chapter, which details then the current state of both credits and investment analysis for the 5 countries, namely South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, and Madagascar. And thank you for your attention. Over to you, Soituna, Secretary.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for that detailed presentation. We'll now go to the next session where we'll be taking questions from the participants. Any questions or areas of clarification, you can open your mic and ask, or you can make use of the chat box. Any questions? I know the document is very loaded, and most of us do not have a finance background. After the meeting, we should be able to share the detailed reports and this slide as well. Patrick, please come in. Patrick, you're muted. Patrick, please unmute and ask your question.
Okay. My question is that how small-scale fishermen can benefit from the financing?
Okay, Doreen, shall
Okay,
I
thank you so
respond
much.
directly?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you, Patrick, and hi from to all our Mauritians colleagues. Well, that's a good question. As you might have seen, the fisheries part is barely like less than 1% here. And there's a work that we need to do. Because what happens usually is like in concrete case, for instance, now the European Union, they have a specific, let's say, funding mechanism on blue economy that they call blue economy window that they're applying currently in Tanzania. But the ticket size, meaning that the minimum amount that they can borrow, they can lend, sorry, is like 20 million. So 20 million for a small scale fisherman could be a lot. So our work, Patrick, is then to advocate for European Investment Bank and the big financial institutions to lower down this ticket size. And how can we do that? Well, we need to demonstrate and develop like what we call the pipeline of project, meaning like we need to develop a bankable project and submit to them. So if Patrick, from your organization, you can like have like, land let's say 5 million and another organization can do the same, we can then advocate to the EIB that, okay, we cannot have the 20 million that you guys are having as a minimum ticket, but we have associated ourselves and the minimum that we can do is this. So in a sense, that's what we can do, Patrick. We need to develop a pipeline of project. That's our part on technical side, but we also need to advocate to those big financial institutions that specific, I would say, area for or mechanism for financing the small scale fishery also happen.
Perhaps I believe that our government can have a special desk at the development bank or a bank in our country, which acts as an intermediary between the lender and the borrower. What do you think?
Yes, definitely. And that's when I mentioned a discussion about EIB, the European Investment Bank, that's our idea, which is really like to go through the so-called intermediaries. So EIB minimum ticket will be like, say, 20 millions, but the intermediaries will be something from like 5 millions up to 200 or even below. So yes, definitely, Patrick, that's the request that we need also to submit to government to go and promote more intermediaries.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Drency, for responding to that. I take note of the comment from Andrew Mushi in the chat box. We'll share the original report as well.
Okay.
So that is noted. Yeah. Any other question? Before someone comes in, addressing one of the presentations, we had mentioned that much of the funding is coming to Mozambique and South Africa. And I'm just keen to understand, is there something special or unique with, especially Mozambique, that is making them to attract a lot of funding?
Yeah, thank you, Doreen. Well, I think it speaks by itself. You know, the most of the funding in both credit and investment analysis went to the mining sectors where we have the oil and gas. And in the region, I think Mozambique is the well positioned in terms of oil and gas and mining resources. So that's why, like, the Mozambican case is there, and pretty much the same for South Africa. The main difference being that um, the both creditors and investors also are from South Africa.
All right. Okay. Thank you. That explains it. There's a question in the chat box, Gracie. Did you come across funds or resources that were allocated but not utilized?
Oh, yes. I don't know, Andrew, if you are based in Tanzania or in Kenya, but like what I said, currently, the European Investment Bank, they have allocated like 300 millions euros for the Blue Economy Windows mechanism for Tanzania alone. And that goes through the intermediaries, which are the local banks. But my understanding from our exchange with EIB is like the funding is not really used. And that is because the lack of what I say investment pipelines, and that's the thing. So the ticket is one, but also the proposition from our side of bankable project is lacking.
All right. Any other question?
Question.
Yeah. Yes, Ibrahim, please go ahead.
Okay. I have seen there is a 5 country is programmed about the financement. So when the other country will be programmed like Comoros, Mauritius, and Seychelles.
Okay, thank you, Ibrahim. Well, maybe just to provide the context. So this work has been funded by ORA, and it was meant to answer a specific question from our side, which is like to try to understand the kind of like funding flows to the blue economy in the region. And as a WWF, as you might have also seen in our presentation, we are focusing, our program is for countries that were cited. So that's the reason why the main result was focused on those 5 countries. And when you say like when will be like the other countries taken into account, at this time we'd like to kind of look at the overall in that seascape, and we need further funding then to extend the study to other countries. And the funding per se, Ibrahim, is not funding allocated to those countries. It was like to more understand the financial system on blue economy in the region, but not about allocating funds.
Okay, thank you. Ibrahim, is that clear? But you can still ask another clarification or question. It's not clear, but I think from your explanation that was quite clear. There's another question from Mushi still. He's asking if you manage to do a calculation that shows how much is needed vis-a-vis what is available.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Unfortunately, the study didn't provide that. What I can say is that there's a very significant gap when it comes to funding the SDG 14 alone. I know that there are some reports which mentions clearly that globally, when we assess the whole SDGs, one can say that SDG 14 is among the less funded. So when you come back to the kind of like circle of the blue economy, unfortunately, we don't have that. My sense is that there's a lot that still needs, but that could be another like way forward, maybe to assess the gaps and needs for blue economy development in the region.
All right. Any other question? I take note of your request, Mushi. We should be able to do that.
Doreen, if I may, just to follow up on Andrew's request,
Yes.
in the website, I think I will paste that link in the chat. You can see the country's report in that link, and I will encourage you then to go through the country's report, which provided also a very specific context per countries. So please go and look at that. I'm pasting the link in the chat.
All right. Thank you, Tracy, for that. Any other question before we move to the last section of our webinar?
Maybe I can come in, Doreen, just on a comment, maybe, and a
Please
question.
go ahead, John. Go ahead, John.
My concern is that when we look at the financial flows, they have to have a correlation maybe with where the different countries have prioritized the blue economy. And I feel maybe there is need maybe for us to look into the policies and the priorities that the different countries have and how they affect the financial flow. Because that's an area I feel that maybe you also need to get to see that the other countries have put into perspective how they want to implement the blue economy. And that way I feel maybe they would attract more funding. And also, as the financial institutions are planning for their funding, then they have something to relate to when it comes to their planning. But if that lacks, then you find it becomes very difficult for maybe the financial institution to just set funds for an area that is not a priority for the different governments. And that way, I might feel maybe you find that maybe South Africa and Mozambique may be up ahead of other countries. So the question would be, what do other countries need to do? And what is our role as the non-state actors also to get to see that those areas are prioritized and are clear to the financial sectors on what we expect maybe for a period of time? Thank you.
Doreen, shall I?
Yes, please go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks, John, for that question, and very pertinent indeed. When we look at the overall context right now, what we noted in the 5 countries is that everyone developed their own blue economy policy or strategy. And I think in there, they have like clear priorities in terms of sector. And where it becomes challenging is therefore like to make that connection with the gaps in terms of funding, but also on how to attract I would say the financial institution, but also the investor. And there are many things I think that can be done. It's first of all, it's all about like making sure that those priorities are definitely clear for everyone. And as a CSOs, it is really critical that we participate to any processes that goes in the frame of development of those strategies, and especially in the validation process. The second bit is really like to make sure as well that there are proper framework in terms of like finance management. As you have seen, the assessment says that in terms of like financial regulation, most of the countries are not yet there. So we need to make sure that there's a frame at countries level, not only to properly ensure that the risk related to oceans are taken into consideration, but also the reporting mechanism are set. And as we speak right now, the reporting mechanism is not properly set. And that's why we are like advocating for the establishment of the taxonomy. And the main reason is like through the setting up of that taxonomy, the countries can then say and request to the financial institution when they report to report against taxonomy kind of like framework, and allows us then to assess that this company, specific company, they have allocated like X amount in terms of like port investment. They have allocated the X amount for aquaculture development. But without the taxonomy, what happens is like when those big financial institutions report, they may report like blue economy while most of the funding went to agriculture, for instance. So that's something that we also need to advocate, like to have that taxonomy clear and to have this requirement in terms of EAG there. I don't know if I have answered your question, John, but I'll be happy to follow up if there's a need to.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tracy, for that. I think we have gotten there, and I think also we need to work on it as non-state actors to see how well we can participate through the process. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Another one for you, Tracy. Did the study capture the resources that came through the non-state actors window?
No, unfortunately, that didn't come through, and that is because of the frame of the study, Andrew. The study was more like on the financial sector, and I hope understand by that finance, even though it's not like government, it's mostly private finance, and therefore maybe not the so-called non-state actor, which I'm assuming is the mostly CSOs.
Right. Any last questions? Oh.
Doreen, if there's no last question, I'd like to point out like a few things, if I may.
Okay. All right.
So the first one is currently WWF is commissioning a study to develop a tool to assess the blue economy policy or strategy in the region. That work is ongoing, and it's expected to be rolled out by April. And we hope that the CSOs will be like part of that process. So the idea is that, well, the study will be led by Professor Warwick Sawa from South Africa. The tool, as we speak right now, has been developed and it's being finalized. And we'd like that tool to be tested with the South African Ocean Economy Master Plan first and rolled out to the countries later on. So I think there will be a time where we'd like to reach out and back here probably to explain further about that tool and how the CSOs could be part of the process. So that's one. The second one is a bit of like maybe framing on how blue finance is like implemented in the region. I think many of us know the Nairobi Convention here. So that's the Regional Sea Convention where most of our country are a member. So lastly, in last year, the Nairobi Convention have made specific decisions And one of those decisions was on the implementation of the ROGS, which is the Regional Ocean Governance Strategy. So in that ROGS, that Regional Ocean Governance Strategy, there's, as part of its implementation, a so-called Blue Economy Platform. And as we speak right now, it still needs to be developed. And there is an ongoing conversation with several partners on how to roll that out. So my point here is like for the CSOs to like know about that upcoming, I would say, opportunities to kind of like join that platform when it's set so that we can then have a better understanding and influence the way Blue Finance is implemented in the region. So these are the 2 points I wanted to share, Tori.
Yeah, thank you so much for addressing. To take a note of that. Do we have any reactions from the team with regards to the 2 points that you've shared? I think we'll be on the lookout, and when we get this information, we should be able to share it out so as we see how to take advantage of some of these opportunities that come our way. All right. So I think with that said, I don't think there's another question. I will hand over to Devon to do the last session of our meeting, a quick survey. And as we do that, I would like to thank Tracy so much for sharing this with us. And we look forward to collaborating more in implementing the key recommendations, and also to thank all the participants who created time to be in this meeting. So this is much appreciated. So Devon, over to you to take us through the last session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doreen. And also thank you, Tracy, for the wonderful session. It was really insightful. And we really hope from this, maybe we can learn something that we can push for as CSOs. So let me share a link on the chat for you to do a quick survey, like an evaluation for this webinar. So check out on your chat, just click it and you'll find 3 questions, which will provide your quick input. So if you have any challenges, let me know. Then I'll just share my screen to see your reactions as they come in. Okay.
Okay. Are we able to see the first question as Devon prepares to share his screen?
Anyone having
Are we able to access the link? Are you able to put in your responses?
Now, I'm facing an issue with my computer.
What about the rest?
Basi shida, bora tu umefika, alafu utanipa contact zako ili nikiwa
Yes, okay, I see the keywords.
na mtu nilikuwa naendelea kuziba. Nilitoka nikiwa
Is this what we're getting? Okay. Guys, are we able to fill in through the link.
Well, from my side, I can, Doreen, but I think it will be good to hear from you.
Okay, looks like we have a challenge, Devon, in using your high-tech method. What I will request that Devon, if you could put it here. Okay, if you could share this after the meeting, your feedback would be very valuable because it will inform us on the next steps. For instance, if we want to know more about blue financing or any other topic you'd want us to have a webinar on related to blue economy and financing, how can we do this better? So your feedback is very valuable. It will help us to know how to proceed. So Devon will share that or another format of doing it. Then we'll look forward to receiving your input. Otherwise, if I may request that we all turn on our videos to take a quick group photo as we wind up our session. Again, just to appreciate you and thank you for your active participation. We'll share this slide. I will share again the link to the full report. If you could read further and understand more about the study and specifically the country sections. So, Mercy, Gladys, we want to see your bright faces. Or myself as well. Okay, right. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone. Bye. See you again.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Too.
All right.
Okay, bye.